Right, I've just opened Houdini, and this should be the first thing that you see. It should be the same as mine, more or less. If it looks different, maybe your desktop is different. Here you've got a variation of different desktops that you can use. Build is the default standard one, what I typically use. I'm going to change it a bit in a moment. So first thing that we need to do is create a project. So if you go to File, New Project, give it a good name. Tabletop, in my case. And for the location, the project path, you can save it anywhere. I'm going to save mine in my D drive. Okay, so this will create basically a folder, a directory folder within my D drive called Tabletop, and within this folder, Houdini will create all of these folders. Okay, so we click Accept, and we go in my D drive, the Tabletop folder project with all of these empty folders ready to either move textures and things into them, or to save files, renders and videos, whatever, into these. Okay, so close that. Next thing to do that's important is to actually save our scene. So we go to Save As, and then the same name is fine. This $job here is like Houdini's way of pointing to the project. So $job will place us in this at this location on your computer. It's like an easy shortcut, so you don't have to go rooting through folders to look for this stuff. So let's give it a name, Tabletop again. You can call it whatever, but something descriptive. And I'll put version 1 so that we can iterate and keep track of our progress. Okay, click Accept. All right, so that'll be all saved. One thing that might be different on yours, so if you go to with the mouse in this window, in this pane, you press D, that will open your display options. So if you want to change how this part looks, you press D there and it opens these options. Okay, so by default, I think you'll have the origin gnome on this guy in the middle, which I find a bit distracting, a bit annoying, so I turn that off by default. I turn that off and save it as default myself. Okay. Other things that you might like to do if you go to the background tab to change the color here, depending on what you're doing, often useful to change it to dark. Okay, you can see what you're doing. I'll leave it on light, just looks nicer for the moment. And that's all we'll do there. In terms of the desktop, yeah, okay, like I said, we're using the build one at the moment, which is default. Got your parameters here, so where you're changing numbers, and then here is your network view. So you'll be looking at nodes, connecting nodes, placing lights and different things like that in here. Okay, so but personally I prefer to have just big open spaces, so I'm gonna delete this, and I've got just these two panes. And here I'm gonna just create a geometry node here. If you press, so there I press tab, open up this menu, and these here I can find all of the nodes. And the easiest way, if you know the name, is just to type it. So tab first, and then I begin to type G, because I know I need a geometry node. The most common thing to do while you're beginning a new project. And then with that selected, press P, and that brings up this parameters window. I prefer. It's the same thing that we had before, but just kind of in the top corner. I can find it easier to rescale it, and I've got a bit more space here. My personal preference.